Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm new to this committee, but I can see that we're picking up this Congress right where you all left off last year, which is ignoring the data and perpetuating false narratives about federal workers. It's obvious that this hearing is no more than a politically driven attempt to peddle a myth about the Social Security Administration just to serve the incoming Trump administration's billionaire-led assault on the very federal agencies that are designed and working to serve the American people. So let's set the record straight. Under the Biden-Harris administration, Social Security made dramatic improvements to its ability to deliver services to working Americans. And incredibly, it accomplished that despite House Republicans' hell-bent refusal to give the Social Security Administration the funding that it needs to succeed. One notable success was the Social Security Administration's launch last year of its Security Stat initiative. Governor O'Malley, could you tell us how Security Stat works and how it has improved customer service at SSA?
Congresswoman, thank you. It was one of the leading examples of the greatest use of performance management, openness, and transparency that the federal government has ever achieved. So imagine, if you will, we gathered on a regular, repeating basis, not annually, like a lot of governments work, but every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, in an agile approach where we set 2-week deadlines, and we ran plays in between. So at the headquarters, we would gather all of the deputy commissioners, the most relevant ones, not all of them, around the table, and we would look for one blessed hour at a thorny problem, like solving the problem of the huge wait time on the 1-800 number. What are the things we can do to reduce calls on the front end? What are the things we can do for first call resolution on the back end? At the end of that hour, and all of this was based on data on the map, all of which, again, if you go to the Social Security website, at least for the next few days, you'll be able to see. I suggest you screenshot it. And then after 1 hour, we would reassemble in 10 minutes across the hall in a room that had the big letters on it, follow-up room. Then on the next hour, we were back at it again, and we would look at the problem of overpayments and underpayments. What are the things we can do right now to reduce those? That drove a faster cadence of action, more sub-regulatory changes than we had ever done before, and that's what allowed us to be able to get on top of some really thorny problems caused by the lack of staffing. For example, the numbers of people that are waiting for their disability determinations. You can see it doesn't happen overnight. That backlog, and that in disability cases, had been growing for 7 long years. But by going at it every 2 weeks with openness, transparency, and asking ourselves the question, does it work or does it not? And coming back to the drawing board in 2 weeks, you can see we were able to start closing when it reached its peak. For the last 27 weeks I was there, we were able to reduce or close more cases on the back end than we opened. So it's about creating a compelling scoreboard. It's about measuring performance, and it's about getting the best out of your people collaboratively, and that's what we did.
And Governor O'Malley, the SSA has also dramatically reduced those wait times. I understand it's 50%. Is that correct?
Yes, it was at 42 and a half minutes speed to answer at the beginning of last calendar year. Okay. Through a number of steps every 2 weeks, and then a big cutover, which happened. It was probably the largest telecom IT cutover in federal history, given the volume that we handle of 8 million calls a month. In September, we cut over from an underperforming clunky system and managed to achieve cost savings, and also had a better system that got that speed to answer down to 12.8 minutes.
Wow.
12.6, excuse me. And for the first time, we're able to offer people callback assist, just like they get from, their bank or any other, customer-facing entity that they deal with in the private sector.
Governor O'Malley, that is a remarkable improvement. How did SSA accomplish this? Did you hire thousands of more workers to get this done?
No, it was with fewer workers. We did bring on some expert telecom people in order to manage that cutover, but they were on a contractual basis for a short period of time. We have been shedding staff. When What a lot of people in Congress don't understand is that to level fund this agency means that the agency, since its fixed costs go up by $600 million, it has to shed $600 million worth of staff. So that's why we've been reduced to a 50-year low. You know, it used to be, we were talking about efficiency earlier, until the staff reductions of the last 10 years, Social Security operated on 1.2% overhead for benefits paid. And we operated at a high level of customer service. At that 1.2%, if you compare that to Allstate operates at 19% overhead for benefits paid. Liberty Mutual, Liberty Biberty, operates at 23% overhead. So when we operated at 1.2%, it was a high level of customer service. And you all could restore that 1.2% if you chose to. You could take it all out of the trust fund. It wouldn't advance the depletion date by more than 30 days, and you wouldn't add a dime to the national debt because people already paid for the customer service that these congressional staff reductions are now denying them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlelady. Ms. Ansari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the witnesses for being here today. This is an unprecedented moment in our nation's history. Donald Trump and an unelected billionaire, Elon Musk, are illegally dismantling our government agency by agency and illegally stealing your data, your money, and your services. I would love for Mr. Musk to come here and testify before this committee so we can understand his qualifications to do this, because last I checked, running a social media platform does not qualify you for understanding how the U.S. government works and making sure that it can operate and serve the American people. One of my Republican colleagues just went after the IQ of federal workers. They want us to think that federal workers are faceless, nameless bureaucrats roaming the halls of Washington, D.C., when the reality is that over 85% of federal employees live outside of Washington, D.C., and they're your neighbors, your friends, and your families. More than 34,000 federal employees live in Arizona, and about 7,000 live in my district. They make sure that your highways are running smoothly and safely so we can get to work on time. They make sure your grandparents get their Social Security checks on time so that they can afford food. In my district, we have multiple VA health centers to make sure our veterans get access to basic health care. Maricopa County, one of the largest counties in the United States, has over 245,000 veterans who do not know if they're going to keep getting their benefits. That is absurd and disrespectful to so many Arizonans who put their lives on the line for this country. Because of the Musk funding freezes, I had constituents calling my office panicking about whether they would be able to get urgent surgeries. Renters on subsidies are distressed about whether or not they will get aid or get evicted and end up on the streets. Even after Trump realized how disastrous his misguided freezes were and reversed some of them, there are healthcare clinics in my district that are laying off staff and cutting critical programs like STD prevention and substance abuse care because they were labeled as DEI. Republicans want to take a vote about fentanyl later today, and yet they're cutting care to get people off of fentanyl. I previously served as the vice mayor of Phoenix, Arizona, the 5th largest city in the country, and I can tell you firsthand how much federal funding and agencies matter to a city like Phoenix. It literally keeps your grandparents and your children fed, your streets safe, your public safety and police and fire running, make sure public transportation is operating, and that air conditioning is running during our extremely hot summers. While Trump and Musk are allegedly concerned about making our government more efficient, they want to lay off and dismantle the very people and departments who are keeping the country running. These loyal, dedicated employees are doing more and more with less and have been for decades. This graph shows the federal workforce. It has remained at nearly the same level for 50 years, while the U.S. population has grown by 100 million people. The bottom line is that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are lying to you, they're lying to the American people under the guise of efficiency. They are dismantling every department. That's not efficiency. They are breaking down the government illegally, from U.S. aid that's vital for national security, to the Department of Education, to the Department of Labor, to the Environmental Protection Agency. They are going after your healthcare, your schools, your safety, your data illegally and unvetted. And what is the ultimate aim for all of this? To distract the American people, to cut a little bit of money so that they can gift their billionaire buddies with massive tax cuts. Just watch them. Thank you. I yield back.
Would you yield to the ranking member?
I yield back to the ranking member.
No, thank you. Just real quickly, and does Elon Musk bring some specialty or some expertise in terms of ameliorating or cutting back or pruning or making qualitative judgments about the value of the programs you described that are being hurt right now? Does he bring some special expertise to that task?
He does not. He has not shown any interest in the issues that affect Phoenix or any other city that I've heard of.
And that would be quite different than the process that we saw unfold in the reform effort in Iowa, would it not?
What I heard from the governor was very different than what I've seen thus far. There were no funding freezes. Programs were actually being evaluated. It sounds like what was happening in Iowa was actually about efficiency, where this is about illegally dismantling our government and taking away from the American people.
I thank my colleague for yielding.
Pursuant to the
From Arizona is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you. Today I rise in strong opposition to H.R. 26. My constituents sent me to Congress to fight for them for clean water, clean air, job security, and lower prices. This legislation accomplishes absolutely none of those things. H.R. 26 says that the president cannot issue a ban on fracking unless authorized by Congress. It's obviously a little bit ridiculous. President Trump is not going to ban fracking. In fact, no president has ever banned fracking. What this bill is just an opportunity for some House Republicans to signal their support for their big oil allies and their billionaire friends. The United States is already producing more oil than ever, more than any country in history. Republicans' dirty drilling agenda will not make America any more energy dominant, and it won't drive prices down. If we could drill our way out of the affordability crisis, we would have already done so. The answer is not more oil. When we drill more and more, the only ones who benefit are those at the top, the CEOs, the multinational corporations, and the already rich billionaires who are profiting off of the American people. In fact, several Federal Trade Commission complaints and class action lawsuits from last year say that big oil CEOs have been illegally colluding with each other and with some of our adversaries to keep prices high and profits up. Big oil is already getting at least $15 billion in subsidies from the federal government. What more could they possibly want? This dirty drilling agenda has never been about lowering costs. Less than 3 weeks in, this administration's true colors are already shining. After promising lower prices for everyday Americans, the president is threatening a trade war with our closest allies, which will drive up the cost of everything from energy to cars to produce to technology. The administration is threatening mass deportations of people who are part of the workforce and contributing to our economy. And the Republican-led Congress is plotting how to cut spending on health care and clean energy in order to pay for tax cuts for billionaires. I strongly urge my colleagues to vote no on H.R. 26, and I yield back.
Reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves, and the gentleman from Arkansas.
Thank you, Chair Stauber, and good morning to you all. I believe that we can all agree that we need to bring costs down for American families and deliver economic security to the communities that we represent. I see this economic hardship firsthand in Arizona's 3rd district, where families are being squeezed by high costs. Rent, groceries, and yes, energy costs are eating away at our household budgets. But if we're being serious about achieving this, we need to be honest about what's driving it. The cost of living crisis isn't happening because of some imaginary war on oil and gas. If anyone in this room still genuinely believes that more drilling will fix this problem, then we have not been paying attention to the facts and the data. The fossil fuel market is inherently volatile. Its prices are vulnerable to geopolitical shocks, global weather events, and the whims of other fossil fuel producing nations, including our adversaries, or even our own president's erratic tariff dictates. The United States is already producing more oil than ever before, and this is a point that I want to emphasize, more than any country in history has produced. Republicans' dirty drilling agenda will not make America any more energy dominant, and it will not drive prices down. Yet this industry continues to rake in billions of dollars in taxpayer-funded subsidies and tax breaks, including some that are almost a century old. Every year, the federal government hands at least $15 billion in direct subsidies to big oil, as well as a buffet of tax breaks. Americans are simply not seeing a return on this investment. In 2022, the federal government lost $2.1 billion from subsidies to the fossil fuel industry. Continuing to throw money at big oil will only hurt American taxpayers. It's time to seriously reconsider our investments in the energy sector, especially offshore drilling. Again, if we could drill our way out of the affordability crisis, we would have done so. The answer is not more oil. Offshore drilling in particular creates an acute public health crisis. Right off of the Gulf Coast, which is a hot spot for offshore drilling, you can find onshore refineries and what is called Cancer Alley in Louisiana. Here, the cancer risk is nearly 50 times the national average due to chemical plants and oil refineries. It's long past time that we put an end to sacrificing these communities for the sake of industry profit. And beyond these risks, we cannot have a conversation about offshore drilling without acknowledging the climate crisis. In my home state of Arizona, this threat is not some distant, far-off, imaginary threat. It's here, it's now, it's getting worse every single year. Extreme heat is straining our infrastructure and driving up energy costs. Prolonged drought is threatening our water supply and agricultural sector. Wildfires are becoming more frequent and more devastating, and I've spent my career fighting for solutions. As a former Phoenix City Councilwoman, I oversaw investments in our electric vehicle industry, which, by the way, had unanimous bipartisan support. Before that, I helped develop the Paris Climate Agreement to ensure global action on climate change. And right now, as the ranking member of Energy and Mineral Resources, I will continue that fight by pushing to phase down offshore oil and gas production and scale up clean, affordable, American-made energy. And that brings me to offshore wind. I have to say, it has been baffling to watch my Republican colleagues bend over backwards to attack this industry. President Trump's offshore wind ban isn't just ridiculous, it's self-destructive. He's taking one of the best new ways to provide clean electricity off of the table at a time when our electricity needs are growing for the first time in decades. This is not just about fighting climate change. This is about building a brand new industry, being at the forefront of innovation, creating high-wage union jobs for American workers. It's about energy independence, about producing power here at home that is not subject to the whims of foreign dictators or global price shocks. This is a win-win-win-win-win. Offshore wind, among other renewable energy investments, will address the cost of living crisis and the climate crisis while building an industry that creates new opportunities for working-class Americans. Remaining beholden to big oil will only keep American taxpayers from a brighter, cleaner energy future. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you very much. Before
Representative Ansari, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm proud to represent Arizona's 3rd Congressional District, an incredibly diverse community where more than 64 languages are spoken. And like many in my district, I'm the daughter of immigrants who came to the United States for a better life. Unfortunately, the Trump administration continues to target families in my district and across the country with inhumane immigration policies, including mass deportations, that are already negatively impacting our economy with extreme backlash from economists as well as the business community in Arizona. Right now, hundreds of migrants are being held in Panama and Guantanamo Bay under brutal conditions, many of whom are fleeing persecution and could face deadly consequences if deported to their home countries. This includes Artemis, an Iranian woman who converted to Christianity and would be punished by death if she went back to Iran. I guess Christian values get thrown out the window when it comes to asylum seekers. These policies are unacceptable and fundamentally un-American. We can have secure borders and also have an immigration system based in humanity. These policies do none of that. Now the Trump administration wants to expand surveillance technology to infringe on the civil liberties of immigrants and all of us in an effort to ramp up the horrific mass deportation efforts. Let's be clear, this will not stop with immigrants. If they can do this to immigrants and asylum seekers, there's nothing stopping them from doing it to American citizens as well. As we know, Elon Musk and Doge are illegally accessing Americans' private data and hacking into sensitive technology systems like Social Security and taxpayer data, which poses a grave national security threat. With that, I'd like to turn to my questions for Ms. Fleischiker. In your opinion, does ICE have the capacity to conduct mass arrests and deportations and ramp up its use of technology without relying on outside contractors?
I think ICE has a huge reliance on outside contractors. It has the capability of developing much of this technology itself, but it needs the funding and time to do that. I think that there is a very clear pipeline between ERO and the private prison industry that I don't think ultimately serves immigration enforcement, ICE, or the country.
Speaking of the pipeline between the work and the private prison industry, there's been some talk about the need to ramp up from the 41,000 beds. Can you talk a little bit more about what the numbers could look like and what the profits or, benefits could be to the private prison industry if this administration is able to fulfill all that it wants to do when it comes to mass deportations?
Again, I'm not part of the administration, so I can't speak to exactly what their plans are. Detention is very expensive. It is the largest expense in the ERO budget, and detention beds cost a lot of money. Congress appropriates that money. ERO has been above the congressionally appropriated number for years. So it really isn't a matter of ERO not doing what it's being asked to do. It has done it. ERO, ICE, does not have those beds. It will need to purchase, rent, lease them, mainly from private prison companies. That's going to be an enormous funding source for them.
Thank you. Ms. Fleischiker, would it be dangerous in your view to allow unaccountable private security contractors to run immigration enforcement?
Of course, accountability and oversight is absolutely necessary to any contract that we would sign. As you stated very eloquently, immigration enforcement, privacy, civil rights, civil liberties don't need to be in opposition to one another. They can work in concert, and it's very important that we have the appropriate mechanisms to do that.
And finally, are you concerned that a rapid scale-up of detention facilities could mean that DHS cuts corners, fails to impose appropriate guardrails, such as vetting contractors, protecting human rights, and ensuring fair and competitive bidding processes?
Absolutely. Detention is very complicated. The people in detention need to be provided appropriate levels of care. When you ramp up too quickly, you end up using facilities that don't have the staffing levels to provide that care, don't have the capabilities of providing that care, and people get hurt or die.
Thank you so much. I yield back.
I recognize Ms. Ansari from Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. President Trump has talked a big game about how he wants to allegedly make our cities and communities safer. He says he wants to get violent criminals off the streets, and he thinks that mass deportations are the way to do it. He sent ICE and Border Patrol agents after our Native American communities, parents and children, and law-abiding American citizens who are targeted simply because of the color of their skin or the language that they're speaking. The chaos and the fear that this has instilled pits neighbor against neighbor, creates more distrust in law enforcement, and puts us all in danger. Mayor Wu, first of all, congratulations on your baby. What have you been hearing from communities in Boston? Are people fearful of engaging with law enforcement?
In Boston, because our laws are what they are, we have very strong relationships with our community, and that's why we've been able to continue making progress on being the safest major city in the nation. But we do hear that people are afraid of the federal government, and it's including people who are immigrants, but also U.S. citizens. That fear is widespread.
Thank you. Perhaps most disturbing, President Trump has diverted critical Homeland Security investigation agents to work on immigration enforcement. That means they're no longer investigating violent crimes like human trafficking, child pornography, and the flow of fentanyl in our communities, putting our entire country at greater risk. That means fewer violent criminals, pedophiles, and drug runners being apprehended, not more. Once again, Republicans are making life easier for criminals at the expense of victims, actually making our communities less safe. Mr. Beer, question for you. What effect do you think that assigning DHS agents to deportations is going to have on public safety?
Well, it's an extremely negative effect, and it's not just limited to DHS. He's pulling in FBI, ATF, DEA. They're all being diverted off their primary missions to crack down on criminal gangs and criminal organizations in the United States. So it's not just DHS, it's every criminal agency in the United States government is being diverted to mass deportation right now.
The Phoenix police chief has stated, we work with our federal partners all the time to work on criminal issues, not civil immigration issues. That will continue to be the stance of the Phoenix Police Department. I can tell you during my time on the Phoenix City Council, I served on the Public Safety and Justice Subcommittee. I heard constantly from our police force that they are understaffed and need to focus their resources on violent crime. But President Trump has also tried to force municipalities to divert their law enforcement personnel to aid in mass deportations. Diverting city police to deportations would mean that our officers are spending less time investigating murders, rapes, and robberies. Now, I want to shift to the economy. Mayor Wu, would you agree that local leaders and public safety officials who hear directly from constituents about public safety know better what your city needs to focus on than the White House does? And also, are you worried about ICE raids and the impact that it will have for businesses and economic prosperity?
Yes, our local community knows best, and we can tell you in Boston, over our history, it has not been the word of presidents or kings or presidents who think they are kings that set what happens. It is our residents.
And Mr. Beer, can you tell us more on what the economic impacts like food prices and housing costs of mass deportations would be and how this could affect a city like Phoenix?
Well, about half the cost of the fruits and vegetables on your in your grocery store is coming from the labor of immigrants and other workers at our farms. So it's an extremely important component of our agricultural production in the United States. If you look at where these people have gone, they have gone into the sectors where there is no work visa. There is no legal immigration option for employers to hire in these sectors. That is why we had so many people come, because of the labor needs of the United States.
Thank you so much. I truly want to thank the mayors for being here and taking on these ridiculous attacks on our local officials. You know what is best for your communities and the people that you represent. You know better than Donald Trump. You know better than Tom Homan. You know better than Stephen Miller. So thank you so much. And finally, I'd like to request unanimous consent to enter into the record, first, a report published by the American Immigration Council titled Mass Deportation, Devastating Cost to America, Its Budget, and the Economy, and second, a Center for American Progress report titled Trump's Rash Immigration Actions, Place Cruelty and Spectacle Above Security.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. I yield back to the ranking member.
Chair.
Mr. Speaker, I rise with deep shock, concern, and outrage at the carelessness of the Trump administration in disclosing highly sensitive operational military plans on a commercial chat platform that included a reporter. Without a doubt, this reckless incompetence put our service women and men in danger. Last week, I received a call from a constituent whose son is deployed abroad in the region. His son's mission was personally put at risk by the very same people charged with safeguarding our armed forces who put their lives on the line for us. This Arizona father and his son sacrificed for our country, and we should all be ashamed that this is how their service is repaid. The Trump administration officials who set up and participated in this Signal chat debacle should have taken responsibility for their egregious mistake and instantly offered their resignation for having violated the law, contravened common sense, and put American troops in harm's way. Let me put it this way. Not only did the National Security Advisor set up an illegal, unsecured chat with the Secretary of Defense, the CIA Director, the Vice President, and others to discuss highly sensitive and imminent attack plans, but they also bungled their way into adding a random person into the chat. We should not be surprised in the slightest that the Trump administration treats our nation's secrets this way. This is the same man, after all, who had our nuclear code sitting in his bathroom in Mar-a-Lago. The way that the administration has handled this entire calamity has been equally as dangerous. Secretary of Defense Hegseth straight up lied. He said there was no classified information on the chat, that he didn't share attack plans, that no troops were put in harm's way. And then there's our Director of National Intelligence, who is supposedly our nation's most trusted, meticulous secret keeper, who went before the Senate to mislead, evade, and perjure herself. What a truly disgraceful episode. This is not a partisan issue. In fact, both the chair and ranking member of the Senate Armed Service Committee, in a bipartisan manner, requested that the Pentagon investigate the use of the Signal app to share classified information. We can all agree that no government employee, let alone a cabinet member, should be sharing classified information in a Signal chat and be careless enough to add a reporter to it as well. There should be a serious after-action review to prevent this from ever happening again, and one that considers the criminality involved. And yet another Trump lackey, our Attorney General, who is officially supposed to be the people's lawyer, is ruling out a criminal investigation into the scheme altogether. These are the same people that spent the better part of a decade looking into Hillary's emails. They evidently do not care to even pretend to investigate how our nation's most secret information was being shared. The ramifications of this unmitigated disaster will be felt for years, even decades to come. Why would any of our allies share sensitive information with us if the Secretary of Defense is just going to pop it in a group chat and share it with the editor-in-chief of a national publication? In conjunction with all of the other actions the Trump administration has taken to dismiss or turn our backs on our allies, I am deeply concerned about how Signalgate will make us much less safe in the long term. Our nation deserves better. Our servicewomen and men deserve better. We deserve better. Thank you. I yield back.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Bean, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Ms. Ansari, seek recognition.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Will the clerk please report the amendment?
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to fiscal year 2025 Budget Reconciliation Committee print, providing for reconciliation pursuant to House Concurrent Resolution 14, offered by Ms. Ansari of Arizona.
Without objection, the amendment is considered as read. I reserve a point of order. The gentlewoman is recognized for 5 minutes to explain her amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment is to strike Section 90002, which would eliminate supplemental retirement payments for the majority of federal employees who retire before age 62, even if they have served the American people for 25 years or more. This entire reconciliation print is a brazen attack on federal workers being used to fund billionaire tax cuts at the expense of working families. Retirement is already so out of reach for so many Americans, and one of the biggest reasons that people historically wanted to work for the federal government is because of the benefits. While the base pay may not be as high as the private sector, they knew that they were going to get the benefits that support their families, that they could retire one day, and that they had better protections against retaliation and wrongful termination. Now, Republicans are bowing down to President Trump and Elon Musk, who want to completely dismantle and privatize the essential services that the federal government provides. We already struggle to recruit postal workers to get American families their mail on time. We have a nurse and doctor shortage at the VA. And yet, Republicans are making it even harder to recruit these essential employees, cutting key benefits, slashing pay by increasing pension contributions, making it easier to fire employees for any reason, and making them pay a fee to appeal wrongful terminations. Making it less desirable to be a federal employee means that the most talented, hard-working Americans will seek employment elsewhere. It means we will no longer be competitive to hire the high-quality talent we need to modernize our IT systems to make them run better for Americans who use them, something that we just had a subcommittee hearing about yesterday. Most importantly, gutting the federal government and chasing away that talent pool will result in a poorer quality of services provided for our veterans, for our seniors, and for our families. All of this just to cut taxes for the ultra-wealthy while still increasing the federal debt. I'll yield back to the ranking member.
I thank the gentlelady. This amendment is well stated. The gentlelady from Arizona has identified an adverse result of the bill as is currently written. Up to now, the law has been where an employee who is separating from federal employment prior to the age of 62 would have, and who is eligible for Social Security, would have a supplemental payment to bridge that gap until they can actually collect Social Security at their full retirement age of 62. So this leaves people in a position where they would either have to, hang in there for a number of more years, just for the fact that there would be a severe penalty from doing otherwise. And, that's not an ideal situation. These are employees who are in government service for 20 to 25 years that are in this situation. And, it's just one more aspect of this that we are making it less attractive to get the talent and the commitment that the gentlelady from Arizona is identifying. So with that, I will yield to any other member on the Democratic side that wishes to speak. Otherwise, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Any other members seek recognition? Seeing none, the question is now on the Ansari amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. You want to record a vote? Recorded vote is ordered.
Unanimous consent to address the House and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to call out and condemn Donald Trump's astounding corruption. Just last week, he signaled that he would change the name of the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Gulf. And today, he arrived in the Middle East, where he is expected to accept a $400 million luxury 747 from Qatar to replace Air Force One. From attempting to rename the Persian Gulf to accepting luxury airplanes as unprecedented personal gifts, Donald Trump would rather waste time on ridiculous political stunts designed to curry favor with foreign governments and line his own pockets than to address the issues affecting the American people. As the first Iranian-American Democrat elected to Congress, I can tell you that the Persian community in the United States and across the world is outraged at the attempt to change this historically significant name. And that is why today I am proud to introduce the Persian Gulf Act to prohibit any federal funds from being used to rename the body of water and prevent government documents from referring to the Persian Gulf by anything except the name. As Donald Trump acts only for himself, I will continue fighting against his corruption and for the American people. Thank you.
Members are reminded to refrain from engaging in personality.
A mark, and I know is here with the intent of being a reformer, which is what we need in Congress. I'll yield 2 minutes to the gentlewoman from Arizona, Ms. Ansari.
Thank you, Congressman Magaziner. I rise today in support of long overdue legislative measures to prevent members of Congress from trading stock. The original Stock Act, passed in 2012, bars a member of Congress, the president, the vice president, and high-level staff from engaging in insider trading or otherwise using non-public information for their own benefit. The bill also included important updates to financial transparency by requiring these high-ranking government officials to quickly disclose financial transactions to the public. In fact, it is because of this bill's provision that we know that members of both parties are still consistently able to use non-public information to benefit their own stock portfolios. Incidents like these break our trust with the American people, with our constituents. That's why I'm so proud to co-sponsor Congressman Magaziner's Trust in Congress Act. This bill would require members of Congress and their immediate family members to divest from individual stock holdings or place them into a qualified blind trust during their entire tenure in Congress. In practice, it would ban members of Congress from trading stocks. This is just common sense. Members of Congress should be prohibited from using non-public information for our own benefit. Polling has shown that nearly 86% of Americans support barring members of Congress from trading stocks. So this should be easy, this should be bipartisan. The Trust in Congress Act and bills like it would prevent corruption and restore trust in Congress. Before I was sworn in to federal office, I made a personal effort to sell stocks that I had and to ensure that my financial future would not and could not be dependent on information that I might become privy to as a member of the House of Representatives. It's about more than following a set of rules. It's about acting ethically and respecting the power of the offices we hold. And in a time where the President of the United States is expected to accept a plane worth hundreds of millions of dollars from a foreign nation, respecting a moral code and setting a strong example could not be more important. I'm heartened to see my colleagues on both sides of the aisle standing in support of this issue. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you very much to Ms. Ansari. I would now like to yield to someone, but let me just preface this by saying, again, we've had a big...
Recognize the gentlelady from Arizona, Ms. Ansari, for her 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you for being here, Secretary Chavez de Remmer. For the past 55 years, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, that we've talked about quite a few times today, has worked to assure safe and healthy working conditions by setting and enforcing standards and providing training, outreach, education, and assistance. Every day, blue-collar, hard-working Americans, whether they are building our homes, fixing our streets, picking up our food, delivering our packages, they rely on OSHA to make sure they have protections and safety from injury or death in the workplace. OSHA also protects employees from retaliation when they raise safety concerns. I'm wondering, Secretary, if you will commit to protecting workers from employer retaliation when they raise safety concerns, especially in frontline and immigrant-heavy industries.
It is a core mission of the Department of Labor to first and foremost protect the American worker and make sure they're safe, and that includes any whistleblower complaints, and we will fully enforce the law and work with the agency heads to do so, and I will commit to working with your office.
Thank you. Secretary Chavez de Remmer, do you support calls to abolish OSHA like those from my fellow Arizonan, Congressman Andy Biggs?
I don't know any, I can't reference what the congressman talked about. I don't know of that comment. OSHA is fundamentally instrumental to the Department of Labor to protect the American worker.
Okay. And President Trump's nominee for OSHA director is David Keeling. While he was the top safety official at UPS, he was the top reason for injuries, resulting in 20% of incidents, and President Trump's own administration cited UPS and sought the maximum penalty. If confirmed, Mr. Keeling would be in charge of carrying out OSHA's heat safety efforts. And given his history, do you believe Mr. Keeling is qualified to take on this role?
Mr. Keeling was appointed nominated by the President. As he moves his way through the confirmation process, I'll look to the Senate on advice and consent that he will come to the Department of Labor, if so confirmed, and work with him. And I look forward to working with my colleague in the Department of Labor to assist in all of the safety factors that are important to the Department of Labor. And I will always fully enforce the law and work with my colleagues to do the same.
And I know last year you yourself said, and I quote, "As we face hotter summers and more frequent extreme heat events, our communities need to be able to rely on prompt federal assistance to reduce the risk of heat-related illnesses and deaths." Do you still agree with that statement?
Well, I certainly never want an American worker to be unsafe or hurt. Outside of, again, we're talking about this heat rule, I cannot speculate.
It's not about the rule, though. Do you stand by your statement?
Well, I certainly want to protect all American workers. That is important to the Department of Labor and as a secretary.
And
as I
especially
sit in
from
this seat,
heat-related.
of course.
Okay. And is it true that the chairman of this committee sent a letter to you earlier this year to rescind those heat, illness, and injury rules?
I received several letters from the chairman and as well as other congresswomen. I don't know specific to that statement. I'd have to go back and look at what the letter specifically said.
So you don't know whether or not you responded to that letter?
I'm sure I have responded, but I couldn't say right now, and I'd love to get back with your office to make sure that I'm being correct in what I'm giving you.
To me, this is incredibly important, just like my colleague from Texas. I represent Phoenix, Arizona. This is an issue that is literally a matter of life or death in Phoenix. Last summer, 608 people, at least, that we can confirm, in Maricopa County died as a result of extreme heat. This year, we already had our first heat-related death, with more than 63 that are under investigation. When I was on the Phoenix City Council, I also have a background in local government. We led a process and passed a bipartisan heat safety rule, worker protection rule for workers. It was broadly and widely supported both by labor unions, especially the construction industry and those who work at our airports, as well as the business community. And this is also why yesterday I introduced 3 bills related to extreme heat. I really, really hope that the rule that is being worked on will be ambitious and will really consider extreme heat and worker protections. I think it's absolutely shameful to advocate against heat safety measures in the workplace, like some people on this committee had. And I also have sent you a letter earlier this spring. Mine was requesting on an updated timeline for finalizing the heat rules and encouraging you to do so. So really, I really implore this, because in states like Arizona, the legislature is constantly attacking workers. We're a right-to-work state. There is not enough protections, and people are dying and will continue to die if we don't have ambitious federal standards. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, and I know we haven't met, so I look forward to working with your office as well. Thank you.
Their witness to answer? That'd be great. Thanks.
Chair recognizes Ms. Ansari from Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much, governors, for being here. I am the proud daughter of immigrants who fled an authoritarian regime, and it is especially devastating as a first-generation American to watch Donald Trump's reckless, cruel, and radical policies transform this country into an authoritarian regime. Mr. Perry just mocked us for referring to Donald Trump as a dictator, so let's run through the list. Donald Trump has, since he was inaugurated, pardoned violent January 6 insurrectionists. Dictator. Defied Supreme Court orders and attacked the judiciary. Dictator. Unilaterally abolished congressionally chartered federal agencies. Dictator. Attacked the free press. Sounds like a dictator. Kidnapped people off of the streets and deported them to foreign prisons without due process. Sounds like a dictator. Defunded higher education. Dictator. Threatened law firms and the legal profession. Dictator. This weekend, he is spending tens of millions of dollars to host a massive military parade for his birthday. Is this North Korea? On top of all of that, our twice impeached president with a 34-count convicted felony president who is not a king has deployed the active duty military in American cities, and he has spent $134 million to do so. He has their guns trained on American citizens without the consent of local authorities or the state's governor to purposefully generate chaos and provoke a reaction. Meanwhile, we have Republicans on this side of the aisle asking governors of states about bathrooms. Like, this is the most dystopian, horrific episode of Black Mirror that I have ever seen. To our witnesses, the governors, thank you so much for being here today. I agree with my colleagues who say this is a waste of your time. You have been instrumental in fighting back against cruel and illegal Trump administration actions. I represent an extremely diverse district, one of the most diverse in the country, where more than 64 languages are spoken. I can tell you that the actions of this administration towards immigrants and immigrant communities is a blatant abuse of power, but more importantly, these steps are harming our economy and our national security. So I want to ask you a little bit about that. Governor Walz, can you share the ways in which immigrants contribute economically to your state?
Well, thank you, Congresswoman. Well, there's no aspect in Minnesota life that they're not involved, whether it's economically in the impact that they make, whether it's involved in the arts and the culture that Minnesota is very proud of, whether they're in higher professions, medical students, engineers. And Minnesota is proud to have an immigrant heritage. We sat on the land of the Dakota and the Anishinaabe, and all the rest of us came through via immigration. And so the impact is widespread. It's intertwined. It may have been the Norwegians and the Swedes, then the Hmongs and the Somalis, but it's the same story, coming to America for a chance to start and then contribute to a better state.
Thank you so much, Governor Walz. And in fact, according to the American Community Survey, immigrants paid $382 billion in federal taxes and $196.3 billion in state and local taxes in 2022. Undocumented immigrants using individual tax identification numbers paid $59.4 billion in federal and $13.6 billion in state and local taxes in 2022. Governor Pritzker, you recently called immigrants the anchors of their communities. How does Donald Trump's mass deportation project harm the security of your state and instill fear throughout Illinois communities?
Thank you very much, Congresswoman. Let me be clear. The Homan raids that occurred in the first week of the Trump administration drove people into hiding. It ruined the entire area of commerce for our Mexican-American community, where people who were documented, people who are citizens actually, had to go into hiding because they know people that are undocumented. They didn't want to get picked up and having to talk about somebody that they know that's undocumented. You could see it was a ghost town. It was a ghost town. We've had people who are working, I'm talking about for decades, who've raised families, who are paying taxes in my state, who have had to flee. And these are good people. These are our neighbors. These are people that are bringing culture and art to our communities, people that should be given an opportunity, if we had good immigration laws, to apply to stay legally in this country and maybe to become U.S. citizens. Indeed, many of them have proven themselves to be maybe more worthy than some people who are already U.S. citizens. Let's give them an opportunity. So I can tell you that it's had a profoundly negative impact on my state, that Donald Trump has been attacking people who are not the problem. Let's go after people. If you're talking about terrorists, and one of the congressmen mentioned that, let's go after terrorists. Let us know who they are. We will go arrest a terrorist any day of the week, every day of the week.
Governor Hochul, if you could also answer.
I'm very proud to represent the state that has the Statue of Liberty in our harbor. Millions of migrants and immigrants have passed through, including my own grandparents. My grandfather was a migrant farm worker. They are an important part of our identity, our economy. The diversity of New York is what sets us apart and makes us so fascinating and so desirable for businesses large and small. They are so critical to our identity and our existence. And I'm really hurt. It hurts me as the leader of a state where people are living in fear in the shadows. People can't go to school. They can't worship. They can't go get health care. They can't go to their senior center. What is happening has been traumatic. It's unnecessary. We will help every day of the week to get rid of people who commit crime.
As time has expired, the chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Arizona, Ms. Ansari. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you for being here, Secretary Burkham. I'm just going to jump right into it. You seem to be quite concerned with any incentives for clean energy development, but as the president's ex-BFF, Elon Musk, keeps tweeting, folks often fail to mention the billions of dollars that go towards oil and gas subsidies. Secretary, do you know how much taxpayers subsidize fossil fuels each year?
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of your question.
How much do taxpayers subsidize oil and gas each year?
Well, there are no direct subsidies against oil and gas, but there's the only thing that historically there was some tax preferential treatment. A lot of that went away with the IRA. The hundreds of billions that were driven towards solar and wind far exceed anything that's ever been given to the oil and gas industry.
Actually, according to the IMF, Secretary Burkham, in 2022, U.S. subsidies for fossil fuels totaled $757 billion. That's $3 billion in explicit direct subsidies and $754 billion in implicit subsidies like public health and environmental impacts. Now, putting aside the $754 billion in implicit subsidies in case you don't recognize the existence of sacrifice zones like Cancer Alley, let's focus on that $3 billion number. Are you familiar with the intangible drilling cost tax deduction, yes or no?
Yes, that's what I was referring to in terms of preferential tax treatment.
And do you know how much the subsidy costs taxpayers?
I know that it was removed in the IRA and doesn't exist today.
According to the Nonpartisan Congressional Research Service, the subsidy costs taxpayers $3.3 billion over a 5-year period. Do you know how long this deduction has been in U.S. code?
I think since the 1920s.
Since 1916, over 100 years. So I find it very hypocritical to say that renewables should be able to stand on their own by now. Another example, the percentage well depletion tax credit cost taxpayers nearly $4 billion over 5 years and has been in code since 1926. Foreign income tax exemptions cost taxpayers a whopping $33 billion over 5 years. But the tax code isn't the only way that fossil fuels take advantage of American taxpayers. This administration has opened up our public lands to oil and gas polluters, while Republicans in Congress are proposing forced lease sales, rock-bottom royalty rates, and countless giveaways to big oil billionaires in the big ugly bill. And this is all based on the idea that big oil will drill, baby, drill to lower energy prices for Americans. Now, Secretary Burkham, are you familiar with the FTC's findings that Pioneer Natural Resources and Hess Corporation CEOs colluded with OPEC, the foreign oil cartel, to keep production low and prices and their profits high? Yes or no?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
So to be clear, FTC found evidence that Pioneer, Hess, and other oil corporations colluded with OPEC to price gouge Americans. 8 total corporations are now named in that class action lawsuit. Are you aware of how many of these corporations?
What was the time frame of that investigation?
All 8 held leases as of December of 2024.
Okay.
Are you monitoring how these companies use our public lands to ensure they are not engaging in anti-competitive practices that raise American energy prices? Just a quick yes or no.
I have zero belief that there's any collusion going on that would be raising prices. These are companies that have invested billions to try to generate more oil and gas, and when they do that, that helps supply, helps lower the price.
So to clarify, if any of these companies are found civilly or criminally liable of collusion with OPEC to raise American energy prices, would they still be allowed to operate on our public lands and waters? Yes or no, please?
Well, I'd be shocked if these cases go forward because I don't believe that there's any substance there.
So is that a yes or no?
Well, I have to wait and see. I always follow the law, so we'll see what the court comes up with. But if the court comes up with something, I'm sure it'll be challenged because I don't think there's any substance there.
Again, it's a simple yes or no. If they are found civilly or criminally liable of collusion, would they be allowed to operate on our public lands or waters?
The
Yes
fact
or
that
no?
the FTC or people in the Biden administration thought that somehow a few companies could collude on the price of a global market that's the largest daily market in the world it's just kind of an impossibility. There's no way that a few people can control. There's so many players in that market,
Okay,
so many
Secretary,
countries.
From
it just
what
can't
I'm
be done.
hearing, under your leadership, not only will you not stop oil and gas companies from using our publicly owned resources resources to rip off the American people and raise energy prices, your department will instead double down on giving big oil control of our public lands and waters. I know my constituents don't want more handouts to big oil. They want clean, affordable, and renewable energy. Thank you. I yield back.
Chair now recognizes the gentlelady from Arizona, Ms. Ansari, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Westerman. We have a cost of living crisis in this country. When we're talking about the build out of American infrastructure and energy, we absolutely cannot ignore the clean energy tax credits that President Trump and congressional Republicans just gutted with the big ugly bill. According to the Rhodium Group, an independent research group, Republicans' recently passed bill could increase Americans' household energy bills by up to $200 in 2035. Electricity prices could increase by nearly 20%. Total energy expenditure by industry could increase by $7 to $11 billion. That's another tax on domestic manufacturing and small businesses, which Republicans claim they support, all because renewable energy poses a threat to fossil fuels market share. First, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter this report into the record. It's titled, "What Passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill Means for the U.S. Energy and Economy."
Without objection. So
This
ordered.
data clearly shows that the repeal of these tax credits is going to drive up prices for American consumers. We all know that the energy demand is growing. Meeting that demand will be a challenge, but we must do so quickly and in a way that doesn't drive up prices for working families. According to S&P, U.S. gas-fired turbine wait times are as long as 7 years. Costs are up to 2.5 times in some markets. As long as there isn't political interference, solar and wind can be deployed significantly faster than that and often cheaper even without tax credits. But a point that I feel is often missed, renewable energy will still be developed in the United States despite President Trump's qualms, because people in this country still care about climate change and they know that wind and solar are cost competitive, reliable, and will not make their families sick. But without those tax credits, Mr. Mergen, will electricity cost taxpayers, ratepayers, less or more?
More.
More. These tax credits were an investment in clean, affordable, and yes, reliable energy, energy of the future, and a commitment to addressing climate change. It benefited American families. It didn't hurt them like fossil fuels do by polluting and exacerbating the climate crisis. Despite this administration's war on clean energy, I promise that we will keep fighting for a better future. Moving on to the question of NEPA, Mr. Mergen, another question for you. Before you began teaching, you were a longtime attorney in the Department of Justice's Environment and Natural Resources Division, where you defended agency NEPA decisions spanning multiple administrations. Prior to your legal career, you worked at the Bureau of Land Management in Wyoming. You've seen a lot of the NEPA work firsthand. What have you learned about our procedures, where there is room for improvement, but also why these procedures are important in federal decision-making?
Yeah, there's a lot packed in there, and I'll try to be brief. I think there's no question, right? I want to be a credible witness here for everybody that litigation has created problems down the line for the implementation of projects. And those are clean energy projects, and those are fossil fuel projects, those are infrastructure projects. But the trend is entirely in the right direction. Courts are playing less of a role as spoilers in litigation, and that's important progress. And I think that's something the committee needs to keep in mind as it wrestles with these issues. I want to turn to the important role of the public in this process, because I think that's not obvious to those of us who spend our time looking at the court cases. I think many, many projects are improved across the board by public engagement. Mr. Campbell, I think, talked about a wetlands mitigation project that his company, that his cooperative was involved in. These things happen every day as a result of public engagement in NEPA processes. Every day, mitigation steps are made because the public has a good idea. They see that you're building infrastructure and they say, maybe you can help us out here. Maybe you can help us with a park. Maybe you can mitigate these effects. That happens every day. And when we cut out public participation, we lose the common sense that the public can bring to this process.
Thank you. I yield back. Thank you. This week I offered 4 common sense amendments, several with bipartisan support, that would have made the fiscal year 2026 National Defense Authorization Act stronger and more responsible. I want to specifically highlight two of these important amendments for you all in the limited time that I have. The First Amendment would have included a penalty in law for using artificial intelligence to impersonate federal officials. This provision is identical to a bipartisan bill I introduced earlier this year titled the AI Impersonation Prevention Act. I introduced this bill to safeguard national security from the clear danger of the misuse of AI to impersonate federal officials. There have been multiple recent incidents of AI being used to falsely impersonate federal officials, posing a very serious threat to our national security. Recently, an imposter using AI attempted to contact high-level U.S. security personnel pretending to be Secretary of State Marco Rubio. AI will only continue to become more powerful and accessible, so we must act now to establish strict guardrails and accountability. That's why we need this amendment. As AI continues to become more widely adopted and more sophisticated, measures such as this amendment will ensure that we have critical trust in the messages and content we all receive on a daily basis, and that there are penalties for the abuse of this very powerful technology. The Second Amendment I want to highlight speaks to a deeply disturbing issue that we all, both Republicans and Democrats, should be horrified by. This is about the Trump administration's deportation of veterans and service members, including an Iraq War veteran detained by ICE in my district, Arizona's 3rd. Veterans are the best of us, our most patriotic Americans. This amendment to the NDAA would have required a study by the Defense Department and other relevant agency on the procedures in place to assist non-citizen service members with their citizenship applications. Ultimately, this disregard for the welfare of veterans and service members stems from the top. I am disappointed but not surprised that none of my important amendments were allowed to be considered on the floor by House Republicans.
Gentlewoman's time
Thank
has
you, and I
expired.
yield back.
For what purpose does Ms. Ansari seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment on the desk.
Will the clerk please report the amendment and
An amendment to the
distribute it?
amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 5103 as offered by Ms. Ansari of Arizona.
Okay. Without objection, the amendment is considered as read. I reserve a point of order. Ms. Ansari is recognized for 5 minutes to explain her amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Earlier this year, the Trump administration and congressional Republicans unilaterally withheld $1 billion, that's billion with a B, dollars from D.C. that is part of the city's local government budget. I'll repeat, these funds are all D.C. raised revenue. A Senate-passed fix has been sitting on Speaker Johnson's desk since March 18th. It is outrageous that this city is micromanaged to such a degree by the federal government, unlike any other American city. And on top of that, the administration can apparently decide to cut or withhold an enormous portion of the city's budget just because it feels like it. This is an issue of fairness, justice, and keeping the government's word to over 700,000 Americans who are denied full and equal rights. How can the Trump administration literally steal $1 billion from D.C. without any justification or resource? Imagine if this were Phoenix or Los Angeles or Las Vegas or Dallas. I'm the former vice mayor of Phoenix, Arizona, the 5th largest city in the country, and I can tell you that a $1 billion withholding of budget from a city government has massive implications. It should be no different for Washington, D.C. While this is the city's capital, it is also home to hundreds of thousands of hardworking people. What might actually have an impact on keeping people safe and healthy in our nation's capital? That would be the $1 billion of withheld funding for critical programs that keep this city running. Funds that are DC's, not the federal government's money. But Donald Trump obviously believes that this city is his personal playground. He has deployed the U.S. military to its streets because he wants to feel powerful, because he is a dictator. And he wants to deflect from the fact that the biggest criminal in this city is himself, sitting and occupying the White House at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. My colleagues have mentioned D.C.'s crime rate is at a 30-year low. So what does Trump have our nation's service members, many of whom who've been taken from their jobs, from their families as reservists, what are they doing here in Washington, D.C.? He has them picking up trash, sitting around bored, directing traffic. I've seen this firsthand with my own eyes. It's been mentioned. The way it sounds from my colleagues, they're more worried about their own personal safety here. I can tell you I feel very safe here, walking around my Navy Yard neighborhood. But our president is more interested in photo ops and seeming like a tough strongman than he is about spending government resources on the programs and policies that keep us safe, whether that's investing in counter-narcotics programs or the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. He has literally redirected counterterrorism and human trafficking resources away from their intended purpose and toward non-violent immigration offenses. So that's why I hope this committee can come together in a bipartisan manner to fix this grave mistake that is costing Washington, D.C. Making this right will make this city and region safer, stronger, and better for everyone. To not do so would be a violation of our responsibilities and a stain on this committee and Congress. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. I'll recognize myself. And again, I support restoring that funding. I don't believe it was Donald Trump that took the funding. I think it was Congress that took the funding, either inadvertently or whatever. So I support restoring the funding, but I cannot support this amendment because it would strike the text of the underlying bill, which enacts President Trump's executive order on making the District of Columbia safe and beautiful. So I oppose your amendment, but I support the objective. And again, I have asked that that be restored in the as one of the anomalies if we go the CR route, which I would assume that's the route we're going to go. And that's something that in the meetings I've had with both Mayor Bowser and Middleton, they've both requested that, obviously. And I think I think that should be restored. Now, I don't know. I'm speaking for myself, not everyone on the committee, but I support, again, what you're doing, but the amendment affects the underlying bill, so that's why I oppose the amendment. Does any other member seek recognition? I'll recognize the ranking member, then Mr. Biggs.
Thank you. I just want to thank Ms. Ansari for the amendment, and I think, Mr. Chairman, I think you've acknowledged that this was a mistake made by the Congress, by the majority, by the Speaker, and so this is an opportunity to fix a real horrific mistake that is hurting the district. To lose that amount of money, $1 billion in funding to provide for services is completely irresponsible. And Congress has an opportunity right now, this committee has an opportunity right now to actually fix the issue it's created. And so I think this amendment does that. I want to thank Congresswoman Ansari for doing that. This is another example of why Congress should not be the super city council for Washington, D.C. It cannot continue its efforts to try to take control over the district. Now, Speaker Johnson and the House, by the way, have refused to enact a simple fix. They have not moved forward in fixing this enormous mistake. Instead, D.C. today and across, in most days, just hear any of the debates, they want to use the district as a political prop. This bill froze $1 billion from the D.C. budget, threatening city services, and I do commend the community and the D.C. government for moving forward even with this horrific cut and mistake. Now, we don't need National Guardsmen picking up trash if we just let D.C. use their own money to fund normal city services. We should fix this issue, which the amendment does, and I want to thank Ms. Ansari, and I urge a yes vote.
Gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes Mr. Biggs from Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and really what I'm doing, I've got some unanimous consents. So this one's entitled, Murdered Congressional Intern's Mom Says Trump Should Take Over Washington, D.C. Trump's D.C. crime crackdown overwhelmingly benefits black Americans as homicides hit zero. This one from February 12, 2024. Yes, prosecuting and arresting criminals would have immediate impact on D.C.'s crime. This one from just the other day. Trump's D.C. crime crackdown nets murder suspects, sex criminals, illegal immigrants, and more in one night. This one, Trump's D.C. crime operation puts safety of families first as arrests surge past 1,800. This one from a couple days ago. D.C. wards 7 and 8 see drop in crime during federal law enforcement surge. This one from 8 days ago. Trump's Labor Day crime crackdown in D.C. net 70 arrests, including illegal aliens. This one, this was from last November. Police arrest man suspected in a dozen sex assaults in D.C. And that's where I'll stop for now, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection, so ordered. Okay. Any other members seek recognition on the amendment? Seeing none, the question is now on the Ansari amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it, and the amendment is not agreed to.
Request a recorded vote, please.
Recorded vote is ordered by the ranking members. Previously, thank the lady from Colorado. Chair recognizes Mr. Min from
Chairman,
California.
Sorry, I have a unanimous consent request, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I request unanimous consent to enter into the record this May 16th, 2024 article from the Washington Post titled, "A Congressman Spared Prison as a Teen Tells D.C. to Be Tough on Youth," which covers the story of a sitting congressman who used a pretrial diversion program to avoid jail time.
I think the title's been read, Mr. Chairman.
With intent to distribute and had a bribery charge.
Mr. Chairman, the
expired.
title's been read.
And yet that is
Mr. Chairman, the title's been read. We're not reading the entire document.
All you have to do is say the title and the publisher. So without objection.
Mr. Chairman, and since the gentlelady is referring to me, I wonder if she would like to debate the actual topic. I'm more than prepared to debate the topic. I've been doing it my entire life.
Do you want to?
You voted illegally your entire life?
Would the lady yield the gentleman from Florida?
No, it's not a debate. It's an article that obviously you admit is about you, about how you were spared prison as a teen and now want to not allow other young people
for the gentlelady, let's be very clear, the article is wrong. The article is wrong, and I'm on the record stating that repeatedly. I've never been proud of what happened when I was 18 years old or 20 years old. I was wrong, and under the laws of the state of Florida, I was held accountable for that as an adult. So let's be very clear about what was written in that article, which is wrong. That does not coincide with the language that I passed off the House floor the other day. If you want to read articles and put them in the record, let's be clear about what they are. And since I'm the only subject matter expert on that article, I would like to set the record straight right now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
I'm requesting equal time. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Was the article about you, Ms. Crockett?
It was not about me.
Okay, Chair recognizes Mr. Min.
It was a unanimous consent, which is not debatable.
Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to take on all comers, so I entertain
If somebody tries to put an article in about you, and I've read a few.
I'm sure y'all want to talk about my private school, honey.
If somebody does, you can defend yourself. Mr. Min.
Mr. Chairman, I actually have a point of personal privilege.
Yes, state your point.
It was raised earlier in an article about me, so let's just get to it.
I thought we did this already.
No, well, we're doing it again because your name was not raised, so now we get to do it twice. Thank you.
No.
He's being recognized for a point of privilege.
It's a point of personal privilege.
We're going to need one,
Thank you very
too.
much. I don't think it's really personal for you, madam. Let's be clear about a couple of things. Yes, when I was 18 and 20, I was arrested twice. I was. I made a lot of mistakes when I was young. I've admitted them. I've had to live with them my entire life. Every day since the age of 21, I've had to purpose myself to be a better man than I was the day before. That is something that was afforded to me by the laws of the state of Florida. And I'm grateful for that opportunity. And now I'm here in the nation's capital doing my job. In Florida, when I got into my trouble, I was not tried as a juvenile. I was tried as an adult because I was an adult. And since that point in time, I have worked, whether it's at the state level or here at the federal level, to make sure that our criminal justice policies and systems actually make sense, and they are built to secure and protect the citizens that we all serve. That's a mission I've been on ever since.
Will the gentleman yield?
I'm not going to yield because it's a personal point of privilege. It's not for you.
I just wanted to clarify
something. For the record, I wanted to make that point be clear. Yes, I'm the author of the D.C. Crimes Act. Yes, I believe that adults over the age of 18 should be held accountable as adults.
Mr. Chairman, this is not a campaign ad for the gentleman's governorship.
This is not a campaign ad. I'm stating it for the record because it was raised by the gentlelady. I'm sorry I didn't catch your name. I know you're a freshman member of the House, and I have never had a chance to meet you, but it was raised, so I wanted to provide a response because my name was brought up in an article submitted for the record. I think
Point
I'm
of
done
information.
now. I yield.
Point of information.
State your point.
The gentleman from Florida just referenced the bill that he authored. And I just want to clarify, is the chair aware as to whether or not under current DC law, it allows the Attorney General?
That's not a point of information.
Okay, well, it's a question.
Well,
Point of inquiry.
I mean,
We gonna do an
we can
inquiry.
talk about it later.
We'll do an inquiry. I am trying to clarify.
It's not a parliamentary inquiry. All right, Chair recognizes Ms. Ansari.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to say, but we all know why you've called this hearing. This is one more attempt to cover for the Trump White House, which is itself engaged in a massive, massive cover-up to shield the president and his allies from accountability. No one is fooled as to why suddenly the President of the United States is declaring emergencies in cities across the country and deploying armed troops against American citizens, despite the fact that crime rates, at least in the District of Columbia, are at a 30-year low. This is very obviously a blatant and egregious attempt to redirect attention from a very real and ongoing crime. The crime which is the massive and epic cover-up for Jeffrey Epstein's abuse and that of other rich and powerful men who engaged with and supported him over the course of decades. Some of those very men are in the White House right now. Donald Trump wants so badly for the Epstein story to go away. Trump sued the Wall Street Journal for $10 billion for reporting about this letter. Not surprising, as we are seeing what's happening now with the alarming authoritarian attacks on the free press. This was one of many examples, but he claimed this letter didn't exist. Here it is. This grotesque, disgusting, misogynistic letter which Donald Trump sent to Jeffrey Epstein. He probably laughed. He probably thought this was hilarious, laughing about the abuse of literally thousands of underage girls at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and his powerful rich friends, and then lying about it repeatedly to this day. Why? Why lie about it? Donald Trump now claims this isn't his handwriting, which is a comical excuse, and House Republicans are covering for him. Why are House Republicans covering for Donald Trump? They're holding this absurd hearing about crime in DC to distract the public from the very real national issues at hand. These are the people that Trump and House Republicans are covering for. Trump's Department of Justice moved Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's right-hand accomplice in the sexual abuse of underage girls, to a minimum security prison, all to buy her silence. You know, Donald Trump sent his former personal defense attorney, who's now the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, to sit down with Ghislaine Maxwell and to transcribe her remarks word for word, releasing this liar's version of the truth to the world. Why would the Trump Department of Justice endorse a convicted liar, Ghislaine Maxwell's version of the truth? Many of us here in this room actually sat with the victims, the survivors of Epstein, and they were understandably shaken and livid by the fact that a convicted child sex abuser and trafficker was given such a massive platform to continue to spread her lies. Donald Trump did that. Trump's DOJ did that. When FBI Director Kash Patel was asked about it in the Senate, he said he had no idea why she was moved to a minimum security prison. Don't House Republicans have any interest in investigating that? No? They don't care? Instead, they want answers to the really important questions. Questions like, how many trash bags did the National Guard pick up today? Or how many traffic tickets have been given out in DC this week? Or how many drunk college students needed to have the National Guard call them Ubers so they could get home? These are the tough questions that House Republicans want answers to. So let's just be very clear. The biggest criminal in Washington, D.C., the criminal who was besties with Jeffrey Epstein and was already found liable of sexually abusing E. Jean Carroll, the criminal who should be invested not only for those crimes, but now this massive cover-up, is Donald John Trump. What I want to know is who instructed the Bureau of Prisons to move Ghislaine Maxwell? What did the Trump administration promise her to remain silent? Why is FBI Director Patel claiming that no other men victimize underage girls and women through the sex trafficking operation organized by Epstein and Maxwell, which is obviously false, and we heard as much from the women? Did House Republicans collude with the White House to change their tune on the Epstein files? And what is Donald Trump so afraid of? Why won't he just release the unredacted Epstein files, which he could do literally at any moment? Unfortunately, we will have to continue to wait to get these answers. Also, Republicans can find out how many stray cats need to be dealt with on the streets of Washington, D.C. I yield back.
Chair